Jake Morrison stood in the center of the massive Galactic Council chamber and felt very small. The room stretched out in all directions like a giant bowl made of pure crystal that sparkled with colors he had no names for. Above him floated beings that looked like living lightning, while others crawled on too many legs across the curved walls. Some delegates were so alien that Jake could not even tell where they began and ended. He had been Earth's ambassador to the galaxy for 3 years now, and thought he understood how things worked. Humans were the newest members of this ancient club of star-traveling species. They were tolerated because they brought fresh ideas and solved problems in ways that amazed the older races. Human engineers fixed machines that had been broken for centuries. Human doctors found cures for diseases that had puzzled alien scientists for generations. Human pilots could navigate through asteroid fields and solar storms that made even veteran spacers nervous. But tolerance was not the same as acceptance, and Jake was about to learn that lesson the hard way. Council leader Zixthera rose from her crystal throne at the center of the chamber. She was 12 feet tall and looked like she had been carved from blue ice. Her voice echoed through the chamber without her moving what might have been her mouth. When she spoke, every other sound in the room stopped as if the very air was afraid to make noise. "The human delegation will hear the decision of this council," she said, and her words felt cold against Jake's skin. "For 3 years we have observed your species. We have watched how you think and how you act. We have seen your unpredictable nature and your tendency toward violence. We have noted how you question authority and refuse to accept the natural order of things." Jake kept his face calm, but inside his heart was starting to beat faster. This did not sound like the beginning of a friendly conversation. Around him, the other human delegates shifted nervously. Captain Lisa Bennett, who commanded the human fleet at Kepler Station, had her hand resting on her sidearm out of habit. Dr. Alan Cooper, the chief scientist, was staring up at Zixthera with growing alarm. "The Council has reached a unanimous decision," Zixthera continued. "Humanity poses a threat to galactic stability. Your chaotic thinking patterns disrupt the harmony we have maintained for millions of years. Your tendency to innovate without permission creates dangerous uncertainties. Your refusal to accept your proper place in the hierarchy undermines the foundations of our civilization." The chamber fell silent, except for the soft humming of the translation devices. Jake felt his mouth go dry. This was not going where he had hoped it would go. "Therefore," Zixthera said, "humanity will accept the following terms or face immediate expulsion from galactic society. First, all human military vessels will be surrendered to Council control. Second, all humans will undergo genetic modification to reduce their aggressive tendencies and increase their compliance with authority. Third, humanity will accept permanent junior status with no voting rights in Council matters. Fourth, all human colonies outside your home system will be placed under direct alien supervision." Jake stared up at the crystalline being and felt anger building in his chest like a fire. Around the chamber, other aliens nodded their approval. The insectoid Kythera clicked their mandibles in what Jake had learned was their version of applause. The energy beings called lumens pulsed with satisfied colors. The hive-minded Nexari sent out waves of smug contentment that Jake could feel even without telepathic abilities. "This is unacceptable," Jake said, and his voice carried clearly through the chamber. "Humanity has done nothing but contribute to galactic civilization. We have solved problems that your species could not solve for centuries. We have brought new ideas and new ways of thinking that have benefited everyone. We have asked for nothing but the chance to be equal partners in building a better galaxy." Zixthera's crystalline form seemed to grow even colder. "Your contributions are noted, but they come at too high a price. Your unpredictability makes other species nervous. Your innovations often ignore established safety protocols. Your very presence disrupts the stability that has kept the galaxy peaceful for eons." "You mean we make you think in ways that scare you?" Captain Bennett said from beside Jake. Her hand was no longer just resting on her weapon. "You want to lobotomize us because we solve problems you cannot solve. We want to civilize you," replied Veltar of the Nexari Collective. His mental voice felt oily in Jake's mind. "Your species is like a child playing with dangerous toys. We offer you the chance to grow up and take your proper place in the adult galaxy." Dr. Cooper stepped forward. "And if we refuse these generous terms?" "Then you will be expelled from galactic space," Zixthera said. "All trade agreements will be cancelled. All research partnerships will be ended. All diplomatic relations will be severed. Humanity will be alone in the darkness between stars." Jake looked around the chamber at faces and forms that had become familiar over 3 years of diplomatic work. He had shared meals with some of these beings. He had worked late into the night solving problems with others. He had thought some of them were friends. Now he saw the truth in their expressions: fear, contempt, and a cold certainty that humans needed to be controlled or removed. "We need time to consider your offer," Jake said carefully. "You have 72 Earth hours," Sixthera replied. "This is not a negotiation. This is a final decision. Accept our terms or face the consequences." The session ended and the aliens began to file out of the chamber. None of them looked at the human delegation. None of them offered words of comfort or suggestions for compromise. They had made their choice and expected humans to make theirs. Jake stood in the emptying chamber with his small team of humans and felt the weight of impossible decisions pressing down on him. Around them, the crystal walls seemed to pulse with alien thoughts and alien judgments. The galaxy that had seemed so full of wonder and possibility 3 years ago now felt cold and hostile. "What do we do now?" Dr. Cooper asked quietly. Jake looked up at the massive chamber one more time. Somewhere far above them, aliens were already planning how to divide up human territory and human resources. They thought they knew how this would end. They thought humans would have no choice but to accept their terms. They were about to learn something very important about human nature. When pushed into a corner, humans did not always fight back. Sometimes they did something much more unexpected. Sometimes they walked away. Captain Lisa Bennett stood on the bridge of the UES Phoenix and watched the last human transport ship disappear into hyperspace. Behind them, the massive structure of New Geneva Station grew smaller until it was just another speck of light against the black of space. 3 years of human presence in that station was ending in less than 6 hours. The emergency council meeting had lasted only 40 minutes. Jake Morrison had presented the alien ultimatum to the emergency session of Earth's government via quantum communicator. The response had been swift and unanimous. Every single representative had voted the same way without argument or debate. Humanity was leaving. Admiral Kate Sullivan had taken charge of the evacuation with military efficiency. Her orders went out to every human colony, every research station, every mining operation, and every diplomatic post in galactic space. The message was simple and clear: pack everything you can carry and prepare for immediate departure. Dr. Alan Cooper had argued against the decision during those first crucial hours. He stood in the emergency briefing room aboard the Phoenix and pleaded with anyone who would listen. "We are abandoning decades of research," he said. "We are throwing away centuries of potential progress. We are cutting ourselves off from the greatest collection of knowledge in the galaxy." But Admiral Sullivan had been firm in her response. "They want to cage us, Alan. They want to cut out the parts of our brains that make us human. They want to turn us into pets that do tricks for their amusement. Humans do not do well in cages." The vote among the colonial governors had been just as unanimous as the vote on Earth. From the mining colonies, on the edge of Vorthax space, to the research stations, studying black holes near the galactic core, every human settlement chose the same path. They would leave together or not at all. Captain Ryan Blake commanded the mining operation on Asteroid Base 7 in the Kepler system. When he received the evacuation order, he was in the middle of negotiating a contract worth 50 billion credits with the Kythera Collective. He read the message twice, then turned to the insectoid delegation and delivered the news with a straight face. "Gentlemen, the contract is terminated effective immediately. Please gather your belongings and prepare to leave the station within 6 hours. The Kythera delegation clicked their mandibles in confusion. "This is highly irregular," their leader buzzed. "We have agreements. We have contracts. We have legal obligations." Blake smiled and handed them a datapad. "All human contracts with galactic civilization are hereby voided. We are exercising the withdrawal clause that was written into every agreement we signed. Thank you for your business, but we are closed." The same scene played out across 17 star systems. Human administrators politely but firmly ended every agreement, every partnership, and every joint venture. Research projects that had been running for years were shut down overnight. Trade routes that carried goods worth trillions of credits were abandoned without warning. Diplomatic missions that had taken months to establish were dissolved with a simple message. Dr. Susan Wright had been working on a cure for the Nexari plague for 2 years. She was 3 weeks away from a breakthrough that could save millions of lives. When the evacuation order came, she deleted all her research files, packed her personal belongings, and boarded the last transport off the research station. The Nexari scientists who had been working with her begged her to stay just long enough to finish the project. "I am sorry," she told them as she headed for the docking bay, "but my government has recalled me. All human participation in galactic research is ending immediately." The evacuation moved with clockwork precision. Humans had always been good at logistics and moving large amounts of people and equipment quickly. They had learned those skills during their long history of wars and disasters on Earth. Now they put those skills to use, moving entire populations across interstellar distances. Captain Bennett watched her tactical display as the exodus continued. Green dots representing human ships streamed away from their former homes toward predetermined rally points in deep space. Each ship carried not just people but also every piece of human technology and every scrap of human knowledge that could be moved. The aliens watched in growing confusion as humanity simply vanished from galactic civilization. At first they thought it was a negotiating tactic. Surely humans would come to their senses and accept the Council's reasonable terms. The Kithera Hive Queen sent urgent messages demanding explanations. The Vorthak Empire issued threats about treaty violations. The energy beings of Lumina offered reduced restrictions if humans would reconsider their hasty decision. All of these messages received the same response: silence. Jake Morrison had returned to the Council Chamber one final time to deliver humanity's answer. He stood in the same spot where he had received the ultimatum and looked up at Zixathera with calm eyes. "The human delegation respectfully declines your generous offer," he said. "We hereby resign our membership in the Galactic Council effective immediately. All human assets will be removed from galactic space within the next 72 hours. The crystalline being seemed shocked by this response. "You cannot simply leave," she said. "Galactic civilization needs your contributions. Your departure will cause significant disruption to established systems." Jake smiled for the first time in days. "Then perhaps you should have thought of that before you decided we needed to be neutered and kept as pets." "Good day, Council Leader. It has been an educational experience." He turned and walked out of the chamber without looking back. Behind him, alien voices rose in confusion and anger, but Jake did not stop to listen. He had a ship to catch and a species to lead into the unknown. Captain Blake transmitted the final message as the last human ship prepared to jump away from galactic space. He had volunteered for rearguard duty to make sure every human made it out safely. Now his ship was alone in space that had been bustling with human activity just hours before. "This is Captain Ryan Blake of the UES Horizon," he broadcast on all galactic frequencies. "The human exodus is complete. All human personnel have been evacuated from galactic space. All human assets have been removed or destroyed to prevent reverse engineering. To the Galactic Council and all member species we say this: you wanted us gone and now you have your wish. Do not contact us again." His ship jumped to hyperspace and galactic space suddenly felt very empty indeed. 6 months after humanity vanished from galactic space, the first mining platform exploded without warning. The Kepler Mining Consortium had been pulling precious metals from asteroid fields for over 200 years, without a single major accident. Now their extraction equipment was failing, at an alarming rate, and nobody could figure out why. Chief Engineer Kektar stared at the twisted wreckage, floating in space where Mining Platform 7 had been just hours before. His forearms moved frantically over the control panels as he tried to understand what had gone wrong. The safety systems should have prevented any explosion. The containment fields should have held even if the primary systems failed. But something was different about these machines, and he could not identify what. It took him 3 days of careful investigation to discover the truth. Hidden deep in the control software were thousands of tiny programs that monitored every aspect of the mining operation. These programs adjusted power flows, compensated for equipment wear, and predicted potential failures before they became dangerous. Every single one of these programs had been written by human engineers. Without humans to maintain and update these systems, the mining equipment was slowly breaking down. What had seemed like simple machines were actually incredibly complex networks of interconnected systems that required constant attention from minds that understood chaos and unpredictability. The orderly alien thinking patterns could not grasp the intuitive leaps that human engineers made when solving problems. Ambassador Veltar of the Nexari Collective found himself staring at trade reports that made no sense. Shipping routes that had operated smoothly for decades were now plagued by delays and inefficiencies. Cargo ships were arriving weeks behind schedule or not arriving at all. Some routes had been abandoned completely as too dangerous to navigate. The problem was traffic control. Moving thousands of ships through hyperspace required incredibly complex calculations that took into account gravitational fields, solar radiation, and quantum fluctuations. The mathematics involved were so complicated that even the most advanced alien computers struggled with the calculations. But human traffic controllers had managed these routes with an ease that had amazed their alien colleagues. Humans seemed to have an instinctive understanding of chaos mathematics that allowed them to see patterns where others saw only randomness. They could predict how solar flares would affect hyperspace travel, or how the gravity of a passing comet would shift shipping lanes. Without them, the carefully organized trade network that connected thousands of worlds was falling apart. Dr. Kethvar was one of the galaxy's leading experts on exotic matter research. He had spent centuries studying the strange substances that powered faster than light travel and made galactic civilization possible. His laboratory on Proxima Research Station contained some of the most dangerous materials in the galaxy, safely contained behind multiple layers of force, fields and energy barriers. When the containment field around his primary exotic matter sample began to fluctuate, he assumed it was a temporary malfunction. But the fluctuations grew stronger over the following days, and nothing he tried could stabilize them. The field that held back enough energy to vaporize a planet was starting to fail, and he had no idea how to fix it. The stabilization system had been designed by a human physicist named Dr. Henry Foster 3 years ago. Foster had looked at the problem for less than a week before proposing a solution that violated every rule of proper scientific method. Instead of using predictable mathematical formulas, he had introduced controlled chaos into the containment field. The random fluctuations actually made the system more stable by preventing resonance buildups that could cause catastrophic failures. Every alien scientist had said the system would never work. Foster had smiled and turned it on anyway. For 3 years it had operated flawlessly. Now Foster was somewhere in uncharted space, and his containment system was dying along with everything else the humans had touched. The Lumens were beings of pure energy who had always considered themselves the galaxy's greatest intellectuals. Their quantum computers could perform calculations that would take ordinary minds millions of years to complete. They had designed most of the technology that other species used and took pride in their logical approach to every problem. But their computers were producing increasingly strange results. Mathematical proofs that should have been simple were taking weeks to complete. Navigation calculations were returning impossible answers. Scientific models were predicting events that violated the basic laws of physics. The problem was in the chaos algorithms that human programmers had added to their systems. These algorithms introduced controlled randomness into calculations to prevent the computers from getting stuck in logical loops. The organic, intuitive approach that humans brought to problem solving could not be replicated by purely logical minds, no matter how advanced they were. Council leader Zixthera convened emergency sessions every week, but each meeting brought worse news. The Vorthak Empire reported that their military fleet was experiencing critical failures in their shield generators. The modifications that human engineers had made to improve efficiency were now causing system-wide breakdowns. Ships that had been invincible in battle were now vulnerable to even primitive weapons. The Kithera Collective was having similar problems with their hive ships. The modular design philosophy that humans had introduced allowed for rapid repairs and upgrades. But without human engineers to maintain the complex interconnections between modules, the ships were literally falling apart in space. Even simple things were breaking down. Air recycling systems that had worked for centuries were producing toxic gases. Water purification plants were failing to remove dangerous chemicals. Food production facilities were growing crops that were inedible or poisonous. Every system that humans had touched during their brief time in galactic civilization was now malfunctioning. The aliens had not realized how deeply human thinking had become integrated into their technology. What had seemed like minor improvements and small optimizations were actually fundamental changes to how everything worked. Zixthera stood in her crystal chamber and felt something she had not experienced in thousands of years. Fear. The galaxy that her species had ruled for millions of years was falling apart around her. Trade was collapsing. Technology was failing. Species were starting to blame each other for the growing chaos. Find them, she commanded her intelligence operatives. Search every system in the galaxy if you have to. Offer them anything they want. Promise them anything they ask for. But bring the humans back before everything we have built crumbles into dust. But space was vast and dark, and humans had learned to be very quiet indeed. Admiral Kate Sullivan stood in the observation deck of the UES Liberty and watched human construction. Crews building their first permanent base in the Outer Rim. The massive space station was taking shape with remarkable speed as human engineering teams worked around the clock to create their new home. They had found a cluster of uncharted star systems rich in rare minerals and perfect for human colonization. The Liberty itself was a marvel of human engineering, built during their exodus from galactic space. It was not just a warship, but a mobile command center that could coordinate the activities of dozens of colonies across multiple star systems. Its advanced sensors could detect alien ships from light years away, while its stealth systems made it nearly invisible to anyone looking for them. Commander Pete Harrison entered the observation deck carrying a datapad filled with intercepted alien communications. As head of human intelligence operations, he had been monitoring galactic space since their departure. What he had discovered was both satisfying and deeply concerning. They are looking for us everywhere, he reported to Admiral Sullivan. Every major faction in the galaxy has scout fleets searching the border regions. The Vorthak Empire has deployed half their navy to hunt for human colonies. The Kithra Collective is using their hive ships to scan dead systems that nobody has visited in centuries. Even the Lumens have come out of their energy dimensions to search for us. Sullivan nodded grimly as she studied the intelligence reports. The irony was not lost on any of them. The same alien species that had demanded humanity's surrender and subjugation were now desperately trying to find them. Messages intercepted from galactic communication networks painted a picture of growing chaos and desperation. How bad is it out there? Sullivan asked. Harrison scrolled through his datapad with growing amazement. Worse than we ever imagined it would be. Supply chains that connected thousands of worlds are completely broken. The Kepler Mining Consortium has collapsed and taken half the galaxy's metal production with it. Trade routes that operated for centuries are now considered too dangerous to use. Some sectors are reverting to pre-space flight technology because they cannot maintain their advanced systems, Dr. Susan Wright joined them in the observation deck carrying her own reports from the Human Research Division. Since leaving galactic space, human scientists had been free to pursue their research without alien interference or oversight. The results had been remarkable. New technologies emerged from human laboratories every few weeks. Medical breakthroughs that would have taken decades under galactic regulations were completed in months. We are advancing faster now than we ever did while we were part of galactic civilization, Wright reported. Without alien bureaucrats telling us what we can and cannot research, our progress has accelerated dramatically. Our terraforming projects are completing in record time. Our new propulsion systems are twice as efficient as anything the galaxy has ever seen. The transformation of human society had been extraordinary to witness. Free from the restrictive regulations of galactic law, humans had unleashed their creative potential in ways that amazed even themselves. Colony ships that would have taken years to build under alien oversight were now completed in months. Planetary settlements that were supposed to take decades to establish were flourishing in just 2 years. Captain Tony Martinez commanded one of the human reconnaissance ships that monitored the edges of their new territory. His ship, the UES Ranger, was equipped with the latest stealth technology and could observe alien activities without being detected. His reports from the border regions were growing more disturbing with each passing month. The situation in galactic space is deteriorating rapidly, he transmitted during his latest briefing. The Vorthak and Kithra have started shooting at each other over mining rights in the old human sectors. 3 Vorthak battlecruisers were destroyed last week when they tried to claim an asteroid field that the Kithra considered theirs. The Nexari Collective is fracturing as different hive clusters blame each other for the trade network failures. Martinez paused as he reviewed his sensor logs. It gets worse, Admiral. The Lumens have withdrawn completely from physical space and nobody knows where they went. Some reports suggest they are trying to transcend to a higher dimension to escape the chaos. The galactic communication network is failing system by system. In 6 months, they will be reduced to light-speed communication between star systems. Sullivan studied the tactical displays showing alien fleet movements throughout the galaxy. The search patterns were becoming increasingly desperate and erratic. Kethera hive ships were investigating every anomalous sensor reading, no matter how slight. Vorthak battle groups were scanning nebulae and asteroid fields that had been empty for millions of years. Some alien fleets had ventured so far into uncharted space that they had lost contact with their home governments. The most disturbing development was that the aliens were starting to fight each other. Competition for the remaining functional mining platforms had led to armed conflicts between species that had been allies for centuries. The Vorthak Empire blamed the Kithera Collective for sabotaging human-designed equipment. The Nexari accused the Lumens of deliberately causing the communication network failures. Old grievances that had been forgotten for millennia were surfacing as galactic civilization crumbled. Dr. Wright had been analyzing the alien search efforts from a scientific perspective. "They are looking for us in all the wrong places," she observed. "Their search patterns assume we stayed close to known space. They cannot imagine that we would venture into completely uncharted regions. Their logical thinking patterns prevent them from making the intuitive leaps that led us to these perfect systems." Meanwhile, human colonies continued to thrive in their new homes. Without the burden of galactic taxes and regulations, human settlements grew at an unprecedented rate. New industries emerged to support the expanding population. Scientific research stations pushed the boundaries of knowledge in directions that alien science had never considered. The message was becoming clear to anyone who cared to look. Humanity did not need the galaxy to survive and prosper. They had always been explorers and innovators who thrived on challenges and uncertainty. Being cast out from galactic civilization had not weakened them. It had freed them to become something greater than they had ever been before. But the galaxy that had rejected them was discovering that it desperately needed what humans brought to civilization. 2 years after humanity vanished from galactic space, the first interspecies war in 3 centuries erupted over the ruins of what had once been civilization. The Vorthak Empire and the Kithera Collective turned their weapons on each other in a desperate fight for control of the few remaining functional mining platforms. What started as a border dispute over asteroid rights quickly escalated into full-scale warfare as both species blamed the other for the collapse of Galactic Society. Council leader Zixathara stood in her crystal chamber and watched her civilization die around her. The Great Council that had governed the galaxy for millions of years was dissolving as representatives abandoned their posts and returned to their homeworlds. The elegant system of laws and treaties that had maintained peace between countless species was crumbling into dust as ancient hatreds resurfaced. Her crystalline form had dimmed noticeably over the past months as the stress of watching everything fall apart took its toll. The being who had once commanded the respect and obedience of trillions of souls now found herself powerless to stop the chaos that was consuming everything she had worked to build. Species that had been allies for millennia were now at each other's throats. Trade networks that had connected thousands of worlds were abandoned as too dangerous to operate. Entire sectors of space had gone dark as their technological infrastructure failed beyond repair. The Lumens had been the first to abandon galactic civilization entirely. The energy beings who had helped design much of the galaxy's most advanced technology simply faded away into dimensions that ordinary matter could not follow. Before they left, they sent a final message that chilled Zixthera to her core. "The patterns are breaking," the message said. "Chaos is consuming order. We withdraw to preserve what we can of knowledge and wisdom. May those who remain find a way to survive what comes next." The Nexari Collective was fracturing as different hive clusters turned against each other. Without the human-designed communication protocols that had allowed instant coordination between distant worlds, the collective mind that had ruled their species for eons was breaking apart. Individual clusters were making decisions without consulting the greater whole. Some clusters had declared war on others over resources that were becoming increasingly scarce. Captain Lisa Bennett received the breakthrough transmission while conducting a routine patrol near the edge of human space. The message was coming from the galactic core on an emergency frequency that had not been used in over 1,000 years. She listened with growing amazement as the most powerful beings in the galaxy begged for help. To any human vessels or colonies receiving this transmission, the message began. "This is Emergency Coordinator Thexval broadcasting from Central Command. The Galactic Communication Network is experiencing cascade failures across all primary nodes. We are losing contact with outlying systems at a rate of 12 per day. If current trends continue, the network will suffer complete collapse within 6 standard months. We urgently require human technical assistance to prevent the total breakdown of interstellar communication. Bennett forwarded the message to Admiral Sullivan aboard the Liberty and waited for instructions. The implications were staggering. The Galactic Communication Network was built on quantum relay technology that enabled faster-than-light communication across vast distances. If it failed completely, then galactic civilization would fragment into thousands of isolated worlds with no way to coordinate or cooperate with each other. Dr. Allen Cooper studied the technical specifications that accompanied the distress call and shook his head in amazement. The quantum relays were failing because the chaos algorithms that human programmers had integrated into their control systems were slowly degrading without proper maintenance. The aliens had not realized that these algorithms required constant adjustment and updating by minds that understood how randomness and order could work together. The network was never designed to run without human oversight. Cooper explained to the emergency council meeting aboard the Liberty. Our chaos mathematics were woven so deeply into the system that removing us was like removing the foundation from a building. Everything is collapsing because the aliens cannot replicate the intuitive understanding that human engineers brought to the project. Admiral Sullivan convened the Human Leadership Council to debate their response. The discussion was intense but surprisingly brief. Representatives from every human colony and settlement participated via quantum communicator as they decided the fate of galactic civilization. Commander Harrison argued for letting the galaxy burn. They made their choice when they gave us that ultimatum, he said. They wanted us gone and now they have what they asked for. Why should we save them from the consequences of their own arrogance? But Dr. Wright spoke for the majority when she replied, "Because we are not monsters, Pete. Yes, they were wrong about us, and yes, they treated us terribly. But there are trillions of innocent beings out there who are going to suffer and die if we do nothing. We have proven our point. Now we need to decide what kind of species we want to be." The vote was closer than it had been during the Exodus, but the result was the same. Humanity would act to prevent the complete collapse of galactic civilization. But they would not return as the same species that had left 2 years ago. Admiral Sullivan composed the response personally and broadcast it on all frequencies that could reach galactic space. "This is Admiral Kate Sullivan of the Human Colonial Fleet, responding to your request for assistance. We have received your distress call and we understand the magnitude of the crisis you are facing. Humanity is prepared to provide the technical expertise needed to prevent the collapse of the galactic communication network." She paused as she chose her next words carefully. "However, we will not return as your subjects or your junior partners. The old system that treated humans as second-class citizens is dead and will not be revived. If you want our help, then you will accept us as full equals in a reformed galactic government. We will have voting rights proportional to our contributions. We will have veto power over any decisions that affect human interests, and we will never again be threatened with genetic modification or forced compliance." The response came within hours from Zixathera herself. "We accept your terms, Admiral Sullivan. The old council is dissolved. A new government will be formed with human representation at the highest levels. Please send your technical teams immediately. Time is running out for all of us." 3 days later, the first human ships appeared at the edge of galactic space carrying the engineers and scientists needed to save civilization from total collapse. Behind them came proposals for a new form of galactic government based on mutual respect, rather than ancient hierarchies. The galaxy would never be the same, and that was exactly what it needed to survive.